If I tell you I appreciate you, that means I must be a part of your life to increase your value. So if I say I appreciate you, it's not something of me walking by or just saying thank you. It's an actual intention to say I'm a part of your life and I'm going to be a part of your life and I'm going to increase the value of your life.
Dang, that's a bar. Welcome to the Identify Your Lane podcast, where we interview guests who have mastered their lane, and we discuss how did they know that this was right for them, for the sole purpose of helping others identify their lane so that you can go and become masters of your lane. I am your host, Daniel Truelove Jr., and I'm excited to bring to you my guest tonight, none other than my guy, BJ Stabler. My guy, man, what it do, man?
Man, I'm excited to be on the podcast, man.
Man, I'm excited.
Dream come true. Dream come true.
Yo, my man, I'm happy to have you here, man. We've been talking about this even before this even began, before these podcasts were a real thing, man. And we've had some really dope conversations centered around this topic, man. So I'm excited to be able to have you on just to chop it up with you, to drop some of that knowledge that you always be dropping, man. So with that being said, man, for those that may not know who BJ Stabler is, man, tell us, introduce yourself to the people, man.
Oh, man. Honestly, so obviously Junior already shared you guys. My name is BJ Stabler. I went to school here at University of Alabama. My career-wise, I've been built to develop people and help them become better themselves. As far as my job goes, I worked at the University of Alabama in recruiting. I've also worked in the NFL. Well, actually, before going to the NFL, I worked at Georgia State University, which was, I would say, one of the greatest experiences I've had in regards to learning and overcoming and things along those lines. Then I went to the Kansas City Chiefs. I worked in the Kansas City Chiefs in player development. I was a director there. Did that for 8 years and came back to the University of Alabama in 2019. So I've been here for 2 years as the director of 8 Club alumni.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you hear the terminology identify your lane, like what exactly does that mean to you when you hear that?
Oh man, I was listening to you talk about it earlier, and if I had to be quite frank about this, when you asked me that, I got kind of nervous.
Really?
Yeah. I truly, I actually got kind of nervous because if you would have asked me this 4 years ago, when I was with the Kansas City Chiefs, I was a director of player development. So a few years before that, I pretty much bullseye knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I achieved it, and there's not very often times where people absolutely get the chance to do what they love. And so at the mere age of 25 years old, I was a director of player development in the NFL. I'm talking about in my prime position. I was waking up in the morning, man, and I go to bed at night thinking about how I could do my job better every single day. And it didn't feel like work. It was just, I was so excited and I loved it. And, doing that for 8 years. And when you work in the NFL, truth behind it, you get fired basically. And that's the question they ask you.
That's
they
very
said,
true.
They ask you how long you've been working in the NFL. And then you say your years, and they're like, have you been fired yet? Then you say, if you say no, the older people that have gone through it for a longer time, they'll always say, well, you haven't been working here long enough.
Wow.
And, that was my first time actually getting fired, and I took that hard. And, I had a lot of personal stuff that went along with that, and we can get into that when we want to. But to answer your question in regards to Identify Lane, why it made me so nervous, because from 25 to however old I was, 30-something, before I came here to Alabama, man, I was doing what I absolutely loved. And now I'm doing something a little bit different. And so in regards to me defining Identify Your Lane, it's absolutely what meets your heart. Like, you have two options when you get up in the morning. there's either something that's pushing you at the back or something that's pulling you at the heart. And when I was with the Chiefs, it was absolutely something pulling me at the heart. But, prior to that, it was a lot of me thinking about, I was thinking about all the things that I had went through in order to get to that point. And to some extent, truthfully, behind all this, I'm now in that phase of just following God and waiting for my lane to open up and listening to those marching orders that he has for me. And even if he hasn't spoken clearly yet to me what I'm supposed to do, I'm just, really doing my job to the best of my abilities every single day to make an impact. And truthfully, identifying your lane is sometimes it's truly just following your heart. And sometimes when you don't hear the message just yet, it's honestly you really marching to the orders or in the season that you're in or in the job that you're in, doing it to the best of your abilities until your lane becomes open. And so I think that's where I am currently. By no stretch of the imagination do I hate my job, but it's I'm turning a corner of something I've done for 8 years that was my love, but now I'm coming back into something that is something anew. It's something that's being created anew within me. Right. That I have to begin to march to those orders and see what opens up. So,
oh man, you just went in, man. So so the question I have for you as it relates to that is this, man. Like, so you said you did what you loved for so long, like for 8 years. You woke up, there was that heart pull, and you felt like you were all in with it. I want to talk a little bit more about that, since that was something that you felt like you were all in with. Tell me about your experience with the Kansas City Chiefs and like what exactly did you do in player development?
I mean, I was a young man going to this thing, like super excited. My job was to prepare professional athletes for that transition outside of their particular sport. So with the Kansas City Chiefs, my job was to prepare them to the point where they're no longer professional football players. And I often use one of my success stories that is not really mine, but whenever you always people ask you, I'm a father. People ask you, how great of a father are you? And I'm like, I don't know yet. Let's wait till he becomes an adult. And we'll see how he treats people, how Solomon does in this world, and the impact that he makes. And so that was the thing that I viewed. It wasn't a point of me having success. I was recognized throughout the NFL. Like, we were recognized as one of the best departments in the NFL before. We put on programs, whether it was business boot camps and stuff like that, so we would get people in the local community in Kansas City. We added the academia portion to it, where we used UMKC, their business program. We asked them to come on. We used people in the community that were real estate agents, people that were investors. One of my best friends named Ryan Anderson, who has his own Elevated Electronic. He's a CEO there, and just now I forget Bravas is the name of the new company, but we did some things that were very impactful there that really set our athletes up for success after ball. And that was my love. Because I knew I had one of the most difficult times with that. And I think all of us tend to have a lot of difficult time with that. So
let's get into that, because in order to really truly be able to understand why you were so passionate about it and, so deeply involved, and I think we have to talk about, your experience with football and your transition as well. So tell me a little bit about, for those that don't know, my big dog. My man was a big dog now. Don't let my man be coming over here acting like super humble and everything. But my man was a big dog, man. Tell him, hey, it's okay to brag on yourself, man.
Yeah. Truthfully, I come in this thing. I became humbled by it because you come from small school,
right?
I played ball because my friends were playing. It was not something that was an actual love at the very beginning, but it kind of grew on me. And the truth behind it, I just worked hard, man. It wasn't something that I was a excellent athlete. Like, I'm not dunking on people. I'm not like doing backflips as people like to see. I just worked hard, and then all of a sudden something just clicks in my mind, and I began to pick up the game of football. and I don't think it would have happened if I was just waiting on the opportunity. I just worked so hard, and as something matched with that, it worked. It just came along to me, and I became better at football in high school. So I get here to University of Alabama. I was ranked pretty high in high school and recruiting wise and things along those lines. But I got here, and these were guys that took it as their profession. You hear about football elsewhere, but they're right. Out here at Alabama, you take football as a profession, and it's not a joke. And for any high school athlete think that they come here and it's just going to be, because I came here thinking that football was just going to be a game, and I realized it wasn't a game when we started practicing on Sunday, the day after we had a game. And I wasn't playing.
Yeah,
but we were, at that point. But we practiced on a Sunday after we had a game on a Saturday, and I was like, okay, this is real ball. This is every single day, and that was a smash in my face in regards to commitment, because that level of commitment every single day. You hear about Sabbath day from a biblical standpoint, and taking a break, and that's what I use my Sundays as in high school, but. When you get down to it, and here at college, man, we practicing on a Sunday with pads on. And it's real. And then you got to go to school the next morning. And then you got workouts that very next day. And then the biggest thing that I think that contributed to it was once you get into the scheme of things, you understand, okay, everything's going to seem very hard. But at what point of the break, or at what point of this period of each day is an actual time where I can get a break? And I think Mondays were those days that you actually had a chance to get a break. It wasn't something you having a day off, but you understood like this is not as hard.
Yes, lighter days.
Yeah, it's a lighter day. So it made you raise your expectations. So long story short, I came in. I had my first injury on my finger, tore my tendon in my finger.
Freshman year?
Very first freshman year.
Oh.
I got redshirted my freshman year. Then as a redshirt freshman, I started, which was a big deal here in Alabama.
I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, Alabama, to be a redshirt freshman, but, Alabama recruits, the best of the best, and you as a redshirt freshman, you started.
Right. And at that point in time, you starting to see a lot of freshmen that start now. But at that point in time, it was a rarity to truly see redshirt freshmen or any type of freshman to start. So I came into this thing thinking that, I'm just going to play ball and give everything I have. Last year, I got injured. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to give everything I have. And that's absolutely what I did. So I started, long story short, going back to it, I've had 5 knee surgeries in college, which caused me not to be able to, to go and live out my dream as becoming a pro.
Right.
But, I think it was one of the biggest blessings that I had, because who knows what would have actually happened if I would have went pro. Who knows? Yeah. You hear the statistics and all the stuff behind it. I'm very grateful for every single experience that I've had. Even up until this point, I wouldn't take a single thing back.
For real?
Nothing.
Oh, wow.
Nothing.
And so with that being said, man, so you said, you started, you had the injuries, and, man, you said your first dream, right? And so how did you go from being someone that thought that football was going to be their lane for them, and then realizing that after the surgeries that this isn't going to be it for you? Tell me about, like, what was that like for you?
Well, like I said, I had 5 surgeries. The first surgery I had was my very freshman year. But then I started having knee surgeries. I had a knee surgery my redshirt freshman year, my redshirt sophomore year, my redshirt junior year. So I've had 5 over time. And so the biggest blessing that I actually had were all of those surgeries.
Okay, why you say that?
I'll explain it to you, right? So let's think about you playing this sport. There's a lot of players that have some of the most gruesome surgeries or injuries that you've ever seen. And it happens just like that. And theirs get taken away from them where they were the highest of highs. And then all of a sudden it just snatches from under them. Me, God prepared me along the way. I'm not saying God does evil, but I think God does protect us in certain ways. Like, I heard the story how whenever there's shepherds out here, whenever the shepherds are watching the sheep and herding the sheep, sometimes the shepherds must break the leg of the sheep so they can quit wandering off. Because if they begin to wander off, they go into a particular area where they become more of a danger to themselves. And so the story where the sheep get eaten by and David is herding the sheep and the sheep get eaten by a lion and all that stuff. So there comes a level of safety that gets us back on track, and we have the hurt and the pain, or in my case, the injuries, to remind us what was our past, so we'll know and continue to keep going in the direction that we need to go. Yeah. Because if we don't, we'll continue to wander off in an area that is absolutely not beneficial to us.
I think that's really, really dope, man, that you actually said that, because I think that a lot of times, and I can speak for myself, I can't speak for anybody else. There have been times to where I've actually stayed in the lane too long, or even in my mind, you know what I'm saying? Just like contemplating, man, like what if this would have happened this way? Even when it comes to football, man, just like thinking about football, like what if this would have transpired? What if I would have put more effort into this? And just, man, it just racking my mind, this what if. And you said, man, like it was more so protection for you. And now, getting ready to turn 35, like I look back and I see, man, I agree with you on that, man. I do believe it was protection for me. But I think the part that stands out to me the most is that element of where you said, man, we have to start using that and start looking ahead towards what's next. And how did that season prepare you, right? Because like some people had the thing that happened like that, and their low may have been real low, right? But along the way, you had these things that sort of got your mind focused on the possibility of what may happen next, and therefore it wasn't. I'm not saying that it wasn't a shock for you, because I'm pretty sure it was, but it wasn't maybe as difficult of one, because you maybe had thought that this time maybe would come. Right. So, all right. So you transitioned. So you had the surgeries. All right. What happened after that? Like, when was your last down of football?
So my last down of football was against the one I really remember is I played against it was 2007.
Okay, 2007.
Yeah, right. Versus Mississippi State. But prior to that, I also played against University of Tennessee. That was the game where I was not expected to play much. I was down. It was just one of those things that you kind of ride off in the sunset with a win on your back. But, played a little bit in Mississippi State. But I really couldn't play because my knee had swollen up at that point in time. So I knew my last hurrah was in football at that point. And so I know you asked me the question in regards to at what point after I had those surgeries and when the transition began. Truthfully, going back to that, I was blessed enough to understand that. But even when it came to the point where you begin to meet life face to face, and it's time to meet that man,
right?
That man of life after school is no longer your safe haven. Yeah, football's, and so I caught a glimpse of that because I was getting ready to graduate in 2000 and what was it, 7 or 8? Like I had graduated in like 3.5 years, and so I had a little bit more time left. Well, I was like, I'm not ready for this yet. I'm not ready for life yet. I'm not even playing football anymore. But I see life is much harder than what I actually expected. So I went back and got another degree. So I was like, man, I'm gonna try to use extend this lifeline a little bit more than I absolutely can. So, you knew I went through selling life insurance as an intern for Northwestern Mutual, one of the most difficult jobs that I've ever had, because in your upbringing, you start talking financial education and stuff like that, and that's the way you gain your income, from selling life insurance. But you have family that really aren't prepared to hear that. In a lot of cases, the people in your circle of influence, as they would call it, are living hand to mouth. And so it makes it a lot more difficult. The issue was not being addressed at hand. It's hard for me to sit here and say, hey, can you give me this money, blah, 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 to be able to, I mean, I understand the appropriateness for the life insurance portion of it, but to be able to say you need to be able to do this to take away from your here and now, that was a whole lot more difficult of a conversation to have with people at that current time. So I had to make another transition and go back to sports where I wasn't ready, because I got away from sports because I was like, my identity was built around, I'm BJ Stabler, Alabama football, you know, that's who I was. And typically when any uproar come up in my life, I don't like to be identified as what my career or job was. I like to break free from that portion of it to make sure that I am much bigger than I'm much more than that. So, you know, slowly I got back into football, worked in recruiting. Another guy in recruiting left and went to Georgia State. I went to Georgia State with him. He brought me along with him. And then from there, went to the Kansas City Chiefs. And so that's where it led me.
Okay. All right. So so you get to the Kansas City Chiefs, right? At that point in your career, like you said, you were trying to separate yourself from football because you wanted your career to be something that was bigger. Like it didn't just be, you're more than just football, right? So how did you feel getting back into sports, and what type of approach did you take once you got into sports? Is now you figured like, yeah, I'm in here now, right?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest gems that I can give anybody. Whoever listens to this, whether you pass it along to anybody, and I'll shout his name out from the rooftop. Scotty Hollins sat down with me.
Oh, Scotty, my man Scotty.
Yeah, Scotty sat down with me every single week. And that sit down was not just a guidance. It was a beacon of hope for me, because in the darkest spot of my life, I had no idea or direction of where I would go. I'm literally getting text messages today from former players that's saying, hey, BJ, I think I'm done with football. Can you help me out and figure out how I want to go? And so that's what I was doing with Scotty at that point in time, without any idea of knowing how I can get where I'm going. Every week, I mean, whenever I left him, you know, those anxieties and fears, they would come back because I did not know where I was going. I mean, I had no idea what direction or how I was going to get there. But just sitting down meeting with him, it just gave me some form of inspiration in knowing that there's something still that I can go after.
That's dope.
He applied a little bit of direction. So he took me through this book called Shape. And it's what I absolutely live my life by now, which, you know, I said live my life by. I haven't revisited it. And I told you earlier that, you know, I'm trying to, well, I'm not trying, but I'm just working this path that I'm on until my lane become more clear.
Right.
In which, you know, I need to go back to what actually got me here. And so he went through that book, Shape, which is an acronym. One is S, is a spiritual gift. Everybody has a spiritual gift. Heart, what breaks your heart when you see it? A, what are your abilities? Whether that's physical, mental, all of those things. What are your actual abilities from technology, all that stuff? So P, personality, or your introvert, extrovert. And E are your experiences, which good and really bad dope. Have to be applied to the situation to be able to propel you in the direction you must go. And so that's what I love. So sitting down with him and going through this book, it just kind of, it just kept making things more clear for me. Like, take this step. And he would give me like logical things. It's not just something that you read in a book and you hope for. He would give me logical things to do. Like, okay, you know, this is what you want to do. You want to work in player development. You're working in insurance at this current time. So what do you need to do? I need to get back in sports then. So, okay, well, how can we help you get there? He said, well, I know this guy over in football because I've been out of football for a couple of years at that point. Let me connect you with him, see if you can get back in there. And so I did. I got back in there. I wasn't getting paid to do it, which is perfectly fine. Sometimes you got to give some things for free in order to get what you wanted the bigger in. And so the back end, I should say. So, you know, I did that for quite some time. and working in recruiting for free, not making any bread. A lot of things just worked out in my favor during that time just to hold me over. And then that's when I went to Georgia State University to their first year football program.
Man, you mentioned two things there that I want to highlight. Number one, you mentioned the role that other people can have in your life in kind of directing and guiding you. And I think at times in life we can actually get to this space in life to where we're trying to figure this thing out on our own. But for anybody that's out there that is going through the process of trying to get clarity, the one thing you said is that, man, you had somebody else that provided that clarity and you had this book that sort of helped you along with that. The second thing that you mentioned there as well that I want to make sure that I highlight is the fact that it may not, what it starts out like is not going to be the way that it ends.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so it started out to where, boom, I'm in here, I'm not getting paid for what I'm doing. But there's some things that you need to go through that process of not necessarily getting paid because, I mean, people say it oftentimes, right? You know, the things that you'll do for free may be directing and guiding you to what you should be able to do with your life. And it seems like that kind of got you into a space to where it opened up the opportunity that you knew that was the right opportunity for you. So,
absolutely.
So, player development, right? So you did that. Like, I know you kind of mentioned what you did within player development, but help me for those that have no understanding of player development on the collegiate level, on the professional level. Like you said, you help prepare, athletes for after sports. Like, why is that even important? Like, why do NFL programs have this? Like, why do they even need player development?
Great question. I mean, most people typically know the statistics. Used to say a player's lifespan in the NFL is 3.5 years. At that time, I would venture to say now that the new CBA has been signed, so let me go back a little bit.
Okay,
I'm going to talk now real business talk. So whenever the new CBA was signed, at that point in time, I think the last huge contract that was provided from a first-round standpoint, I think it was Sam Bradford, who got approximately $50 million. And that was to a draft pick who had not, at that point in time, proven himself on the field. And so, to a certain extent, older players have started getting a little bit upset by that, right? And so, they go back and they negotiate and they talk their talk with the union reps. You got two sides, and then it's this way in corporate America. You got some areas are protected by a union, and some of them have to work within that organization in itself. And so players, NFL, they have a union. And so they go to their union, they talk about a new deal that might come out in their collective bargaining agreement that they have to kind of sign, and it goes every 10 years, I think. So within each 10 years, any issues they may have come up, they have to be able to bring that to the table to prepare themselves to negotiate this new collective bargaining agreement. And so in that agreement, what began to happen, players and owners begin to make this shift where, okay, we're going to scale those new draft picks dollars, and we're going to try to provide that. And I said, try. We're going to try to provide that to the older guys. And so what they did was they tried to make this shift. So now, first-round draft picks probably get $20 million. Remember, I said Sam Bradford at that time was getting $50 million. Now these new draft picks are getting $20 million. But if you also look at the lifespan of current NFL players, their lifespan went from I would venture to say it's less than 3.5 now. So what I'm saying is those older players aren't playing as long. So that money that you save from draft picks.
Yo, it's a dirty game, man.
I'm not saying it's dirty. It is the way that
it's a money game. I'm gonna say it's a money game. I'll say it's a money game.
Yeah, I mean, this is possibly, some people might say me being PC, but you got to be able to go in and get what you need out of there. If you thinking this is going to be your livelihood for your rest of your life, I understand. We all got high hopes. I wanted to go pro. I did from another angle, but we all wanted to go pro and make millions and millions of dollars, in which that doesn't work out for everybody. And so I understand the dynamic by which we all have the hopes of thinking that this NFL lifespan is going to work. But I always tell people, I don't want to scare you, but it could easily be. I remember being in Kansas City in the locker room, guys go out to a concert of some sort. Next morning you come in and you think you're safe. You come in the next morning, you're in there talking about the concert, what a great time you had with the boys and the family or whoever. It was a Drake concert, and you sitting in the locker room on your chair, and you get a tap on your shoulder. Hey, bring your playbook. And everyone knows that language. You ain't bring your playbook just to freaking come study with the coach or whomever. It means your job is pretty much done at that team. So what happens at that point is you have to go talk to the general manager or personnel person. You may or may not get a chance to talk to the head coach or whatever. And then you go on from there, you have to talk to your family. You have to let everybody know that things have changed dramatically. And who knows, you might get on with another team and you might not get on another team. There's a great chance of either or. And so in my job was, one, to prepare those guys for that scenario, for that moment. So when they do, because I ain't going to say if, when they do, get that tap on the shoulder and ask to bring their playbook, that they can walk out of there and more prepared to understand, one, from your bank account, that you are more prepared from a financial standing. Right. Two, your social setting, your livelihood from your family aspect of it, you're set up there. Three, from a career standpoint, you've invested in yourself to be able to say, I know, or I have a great idea of what I want to do when I'm done with this sport.
I got a question for you. How difficult was it for guys to take player development serious? Because, they most guys say you never know when you played your last down until you've actually played your last down. Like that, nobody listening be like, oh, you know what, man, I'm gonna have a long career. A lot of guys think that. So was it difficult for you to get guys to buy into player development with that mindset that, man, I know maybe one day this is going to happen, but not me. You know what I'm saying? Like, was that?
I mean, that's the mindset. I mean, and I'm not going to say, it's hard for me to manage or to say the level of difficulty it was from the aspect of an individual that beat the odds all around.
Yeah.
You beat the odds of 1% to make it into the NFL. And who am I to sit here and say, at some point in time, man, this is about to leave? I mean, I had to say it because it rings true.
Right.
But I don't know when that moment actually was. And so my job was to create, and one of the aspects I would definitely say that was very much so important for me was to let the aspect from the insurance business that I learned was sales, right? Okay. So I tell people all the time, you don't just go through things for no apparent reason. You pick up stuff on the way. It's a arsenal of weapons that you begin to use on your way to the battlefield. So you picking up all these weapons. So when I told you the most difficult job I had in insurance was also one of the most applicable jobs for my life. So I had to learn how to sell these guys on how important it was for them to go back and finish their education. NFL had a continual education program, whether it was through the PA or whether it's through their college. So you had to match it up. And I would go to them and say, hey, man, just take one class. How hard is that just to take? And so you look up, you're getting guys going back to, I'll say, one of my good friends to this day. He went to Nova Southeastern and got his MBA while he was he's still playing.
For real?
Went to Nova Southeastern and got his MBA down there and graduated, sent me the picture. Man, I felt like a proud dad.
Dang, that's dope.
Felt like a proud dad. Another scenario I'll tell you about, one of the most highly touted players on the Chiefs teams. This guy said that, and this is another perspective of it. This guy said that he wanted to become a firefighter, right? And so what I did was I went to the local fire station. I asked them to put together a program for a weekend that all of our guys can just go through and understand from an educational purpose to understand what they wanted to do, right, in regards to firefighting. So they got a chance to put on a suit. They got a chance to climb up that big, tall ladder. They got a chance to, really carry the hose. They got exploration experience. And that's why I tell people all the time, the biggest thing that you could do is explore. So one of the most important things that you can also do is find out what you don't want to do. Because that player said, and they had to go, he realized that he had to go through the EMT, ride on the back of the ambulance first, before he ever got a chance to ride a fire truck. So he's like, you know what? I don't know if this is for me. So he didn't become a firefighter. But another person in that group just graduated.
Oh, for real?
To become a firefighter out in Sacramento.
Dang,
California.
That's dope, so man.
He just became a firefighter out there. And so I'm talking about, again, these are proud moments.
Right.
Another experience, this is the last experience I'll talk about in regards to those players. So another player, right? And I'll say his name because I always say his name. So Travis Daniels, right? Travis played at LSU. One of Coach Saban's players. He loves Coach. Loves Coach. So Travis talks about, Travis is a very intelligent dude. Had his own marketing company. He had a barbershop in Atlanta. His brother was working, and he sold it to his brother or whatever. But he also expressed his interest in photography. Right? Yeah. And so once he expressed that interest, there's a lot of people that express interest, and I'll never judge people because I go through this myself. I'll express interest or something, but sometimes the ignorance that we have will cause fear upon us to never take a step towards it. We're so afraid to fail that we would never take a step forward because we think people are going to say something bad about it or whatever may go into it. So this dude here, Travis, he said he wanted to do something in photography. So he links up with our team photographer. After that, he would go on, these little rounds and shoots with him. He teaches them what the shutters he needs, all that stuff. Then he goes down to the Pro Bowl. He shoots at the Pro Bowls, one of the first active NFL players to shoot at the Pro Bowl. Then he's down there shooting in Miami, shooting Wilhelmina models. Then he goes on with a group down there that, they go shoot wedding photography. And if you would go to, I think it's TravisDanielsPhotography.com and look up his pictures now, he's a wedding photographer. If you go look at his photos right now, you would see art. It is an absolute thing of beauty that you'll never be able to take away. And this guy now has an absolute career for him. So if I called him right now, he's probably editing photos. I talked to him this past weekend. I said, man, what are you up to? He's like, man, I'm tired, bro. He's like, I just shot 2 weddings this weekend. But this is what he loves to do.
Dang, that's dope. And I think that's dope because the thing that I see is that what Scotty was for you, you went and became for others. When he helped introduce you to shape, you now took that same philosophy and you went and helped others now transition in life, man, because that transition is very difficult. But, man, you have some success stories and you just basically expounded upon why it's so important for player engagement to be involved because you don't know when that time is going to come. Right. I want to actually mention one other thing, man, because you said something when you were speaking that I think more people need to hear. And it's something that really a mentor of mine when I lived in Arizona told me about. So, and I got to shout you out because since we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. So I started a clothing line back in 2014, right? Yeah. And I think it was 2015 was my first year going to the NBA draft. I had a friend of mine, a really good friend, my boy Shad. He had one of his teammates, Dub, had this, I can't remember what she did, but she does stuff in entertainment and things like that. And she saw my stuff through Shad, and she was like, hey, you know what? I like your stuff you got going on. Do you want to come to the NBA draft? What do you mean? Do I? What? Absolutely, I want to come to the NBA draft. So I go there, and I did that a couple years in a row, having my clothing line, the playground repeat, and different things that I was doing at the NBA draft.
Say the clothing line again. You said it too fast. You said it too fast.
Playground repeat, right? Yeah. So playground repeat was at the NBA draft, right? And I was sitting down with my mentor, and I was talking about life and things like that. And I was talking to him about football and how, every kid, is coming up from the South, you want to go to the NFL, want to make it pro. And he was like, man, you made it pro. I was like, what you mean I made it pro? I said, no, I didn't. What you mean? I'm in here in Arizona. I ain't playing nobody football. What you talking about? He was like, man, he was like, I've seen, and I'd say who it is Pastor Will. I went to his church for probably like 5 or 6 years when I was in Arizona. And he's like, man, he was like, I've seen your clothes. I don't know how many professional athletes. He was like, man, you may have not have made it professionally, but you made it to the professional ranks in some type of way. Yeah. And you said while you were talking, you was like, I didn't make it pro, but he was like, but I made it professional. Yeah. Will you talk a little bit about like what made you say that, and a little bit more about how people can actually see that they can make it to a certain level or arena, but they don't necessarily have to play the sport and actually to make it in that arena. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like to give people homework, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm going to give you the answer to it. So it's like a trick.
Mm-hmm. Open book test.
Yeah, open book test, right? So, so I recently, in 2019, I finished my MBA.
Congrats, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Give me the clap.
Oh, yeah.
So in 2019, I finished my MBA, man. That was a difficult time. I could have easily stopped after I got fired. I could have easily stopped after my pops passed away. And it's just a level of commitment within me in certain areas that I won't let myself quit, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's to my own demise. But what was the question? I forgot what I was about to say.
Making it professional.
Oh, yeah,
true.
You good. True. So in regards to making it professional, I knew for a fact that I could have gone pro, right? Mm-hmm. I knew without a doubt that I could have gone pro. But at the same time, if you look up the business makeup, I can't think of the correct term for it. If you look up the business makeup of the NFL, it will possibly college now, but if you look at the business makeup of the NFL, it would tell you that it is sport entertainment.
Yeah.
It is entertainment. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it is not just your normal job. Mm-hmm. It is entertainment for people. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is people's normal job, not to kind of downplay it. But if you look at the business structure, and I did like 4 papers on this in my classes. It is a sports entertainment business. Mm-hmm. And so when I looked at that, it became real to me to understand that not only when I look at sports and how they're structured, if I go look at Northwestern Mutual, if I go look at any Fortune 500 business, I'll ultimately see the structure very similar to all of them. They are an absolute 100% business. Mm-hmm. And so the biggest issue was for all of us is people place so much more of an emphasis on sports and so much on making it. And I get it, man. We all, a lot of us, we come from hardly anything. Mm-hmm. And we're taught, the saying, get it how you live. Yeah. And we lived in a very difficult moment. Facts. So we're getting it to the most difficult ways mm-hmm. that we can. Mm-hmm. So I'm not ever going to fault guys for being able to do that. But I began to understand that the dynamic that we place on sports, that is a profession. But so is any other job that we tend to go to. Mm-hmm. But the fact that for me, when I think about making it pro on the other side, was I still made it working in the front office. Mm-hmm.
Talk that talk now. Come on now.
And I'm not trying to toot my horn or nothing like that, but the truth is I defied a lot of odds.
Yeah.
I did. And I had a great amount of success. Mm-hmm. I did. And it was a large part, one, Jesus Christ himself, and I'll never downplay that. Mm-hmm. But two, because of the other people around me, mm-hmm. it's never because of something I did by myself.
Right. Yeah.
You'll always hear me giving shout outs to other people. It's solely because Ramon and Jordan, who helped me, who's in player development at that time, Corey, Bino,
Mm-hmm.
all the rest of the guys that came along on this journey. Katie Douglas, who actually gave me the first opportunity because I was an assistant before. A lady that was in player development, which you rarely hear. At that time, she was one of the first to ever do it. Her and Tina Tuggle from the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of firsts that go out there, but I really was never the one to be able to do it on my own. But I do realize that I carry myself in a certain way that I am a pro at whatever I do.
That's big.
And opportunities come to me because of the way that I carry myself.
That's dope, man. Dope, man. And I think that's huge, man. And I think it's important to highlight, like you said, the sports and entertainment industry, because when we can truly see that there's opportunities outside of the field, man. Like, you don't have to do it on the court, man.
No.
I mean, if you can make it on there, that's great. But there's many ways. Your man Travis Daniels, man, is doing it. He made it on the field, and now he's still on the field with photography. You know what I'm saying? And other people that actually become GMs and making it in the scouting and all these other ranks, man. There's a lot of things. Making it as a coach, there's a lot of things that you can do to make it there. But even if you don't make it there, like the way you carry yourself defines whether or not you're professional or not. I like the way that you did that, man. And so, man, you had an 8-year career in the NFL as a professional, right? Talk to me a little bit about how you've taken those skill sets, that knowledge and that education that you got there and also in college as well, and you've taken it with you in your next thing, because I think it's important for the thing that you highlighted earlier. It was like, man, I felt like I was operating in my lane. I was in my lane. And now, the separation happened. You got fired. Was it hard for you to give up what you were doing? Did you try to go back into it? And how did you decide that, man, it's time for my next hoorah? And how did you discover what your next opportunity was going to be?
Truthfully, as soon as I was done with the Chiefs, I mean, I had my mentality is a fighter's mentality. So, and it's probably the most unhealthy way to go about it, truthfully. But I tend to try to like cut weight. I put myself in a corner, and I prepare to put my dukes up for anything that's coming this way.
Gotcha.
Right. And so what I did was, I get fired. I move out of my house at that point in time that I was renting at that point, because I didn't know how long it was going to take for me to get my next job. And tell everybody, man, you will never feel like you're in control until you have continued to save a nest egg for yourself that allows you to make a safe transition.
Yeah, that's
I'm
important.
Tell you, because you will never know how scary that situation is to know when the next opportunity is going to come until it hits you and they call you in the office and say, hey, sorry, you got to go. And you got a little nest egg to live on. That is one thing that you can take off your plate in regards to a scary method.
Yep.
And so I had a little something there, so I was able to, but I didn't want to exhaust it on something, because I was living in a house by myself.
Yeah, renting expenses like that. Yeah.
Right. So I moved out, living with a friend. I did that for a little while, just waiting on my next opportunity to come. But in the time, I was working with a nonprofit organization.
The reading joint, wasn't it? Was it the reading?
Literacy
lab. Literacy lab. That's what it was. Yeah.
So I did literacy lab for about a year or so. What it was is it was fulfilling because it was a group that were helping young African American men get into the educational sector. I learned that there's less than 1% African American men who are actually teachers out here. And so when you look at impoverished schools, when they see people that don't look like them, it's hard for them to be able to respond in a certain way. And the people on the other side of it, it's hard for them because they don't really understand what these young kids
To
are
connect.
actually going through.
Yeah.
So there's a dynamic that is actually missing in the educational sector, and that's something that my mom, my mom is real big in education. She's real big into that. And so I love education. I love academia. And so when I was with the Literacy Lab, it was a fulfilling moment, but it wasn't as supportive as I absolutely needed. I support them still until this day, in ways they probably don't even know. But I still support Literacy Lab and what they're doing. Love what they're doing. I hope they continue to do what they're doing. But after Literacy Lab, it was time for me to, and the truth behind it. So I got fired on January 25th, 2019. My pops passed April 16th. My dad is my hero, one of the biggest loves of my life, right?
Shout out to Sweet Po.
Yeah, shout out to my pops, Sweet Po.
Long live Sweet Po.
Yeah. So everybody knows when you see me, you see my dad. I'll always honor my father, my heavenly father, and my father that's in heaven. So I'll always honor them in any way that I can. I'll always speak his name because, bro, and this is a personal moment. I remember when I came home for the funeral. I remember when I was getting ready to go back to Kansas City at that point in time, not knowing what was going to happen, all that stuff. I remember sitting in the airport. I was mad. I was angry. And I just couldn't understand why I was angry. Then it hit me. I was like, man, nobody's stopping to honor my dad right now. People need to be, and it might sound crazy, but I was like, people need to be stopping and saluting my dad right now. This man was a man's man. This man was a father to many. Like I don't know. I don't care if you don't know him. Yeah, y'all need to stop and understand who my dad was. And so, I literally was mad, man, because I didn't feel like he was getting the honor he deserved from people who probably didn't even know it. Then I felt bad for him. I was like, I wish people would have been able to have a James Lee Stabler in their life. I wish they would have, and this world would be an absolute better place because of it. But, during that time, and that was within less than a 6 month span of two of the most traumatic experiences in any human being life. Both of those have happened to me. The third one is a divorce, right? So those two things were two of the most traumatic experiences in my life, and I had to deal with it. And the way I deal with things is I get ready to fight. And so, like I said, I push people away, and I'm like, man, I don't want to have to depend on you. I want you to feel like you need to depend on me. I had a lot of friends out there. Hey, man, like, you need anything? I want to help you in it. Nah, man, it's coming. It's coming. I just kind of left it alone. Then I started thinking about, I did also grew angry with my previous job. But, the truth of the matter is, in terms of maturity, you begin to understand that it takes two to tango. That there's two sides of this coin that you begin to see, that maybe you could have done something different or they could have done something. Like, there's a mesh of it. But overall, when I came back to Alabama, the skill set that I feel like I have acquired, one, I was excited to come back. People were very welcoming. I remember going to the first Red Elephant Club meeting. People were excited to see me back. Everybody's like, I'm so glad you're back. It was a new energy. I think the guy who had it before me, Tommy Ford, did a fantastic job in passing the ranks on to me. And now it's time for me to apply all those things that I've learned from University of Alabama in recruiting, Scotty Holland sitting down with me, Georgia State, that experience I had there in recruiting, my 8 years with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's time for me to apply all those things in the appropriate way, because now I ain't, I say I ain't, but this is what it is. I ain't the same old BJ that I used to be.
Facts.
The way that I thought in one point of time, and when you go back to you talking about identifying your lane, sometimes your lanes change. Sometimes your seasons change. On that lane that you were once on, you had green trees all around you that at some point in time might dry up and look brown leaves and leaves on the ground. Sometimes your lane might have dirt on the ground on your highway. Sometimes you might be driving on a bumpy road, but it's a lane that you're on and you just can't stop because it's easier to maneuver something that's going as opposed to something that has completely halted. I can easily make a U-turn and go in a different direction if I'm going. As long as I'm moving, I'm in the best possible state that I can absolutely be because God can use me now. And he can use me for the lane that he actually placed me in.
Man, that's dope, man. My boy Sam Acho, man. Shout out to Sam. Man, he told me this a while back, man. Man, and shout out to and I remember I was going to mention this earlier, and I actually forgot it, man. He was the second person that introduced me to the NFL. You were one of the ones that actually one of your events you did with the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, I really appreciate that, man, because he bought my clothing line. And he got it for all his athletes, man. You would see cats like Jamal Charles, man. It was crazy, man. Jamal Charles did a cover with the NFL.com when he was rehabbing. And they did this whole column on him. And I get a call one day, like, yo, man, you on NFL.com? I'm like, I was like, what are you talking about? I'm on. They're like, Jamal Charles has your clothes on his special on NFL. I was like, what are you talking about? So he sends me this link. And it's Jamal Charles, and he has it on his website and everything. And I'm like, he's training in the playground repeat joints. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, yo, but that all happened because of you, man. And I just want to say, man, I appreciate, what you did, man, because like you didn't have to do that. Right. And in the same way, Sam Acho as well, man. He did the same thing for the Chicago Bears, man. He bought it for his entire team. Yeah. He did that 2 years in a row. I remember it was like each year it was like 120. It was something crazy because you did it before they made the cuts, whatever, like OTAs, whatever. I don't know what it's called, but when they had the 90-man roster, right? Yeah. He bought it for everybody and others too, and he did it for the entire team, man. But so I want to shout him out for that as well. But he told me this one time. He said, "Man, God hits a moving target," and that's what you reminded me of when you said that, man. God hits a moving target, man. So no matter where you're at, don't stop. Like, keep moving.
Absolutely.
Man, and one thing I want to ask here is, man, and because I think you've given a lot of gems, man, and I kind of want to kind of go in this direction, man. For somebody that's out there that is just stuck, somebody's out there that's looking for clarity, trying to figure out what's next for them, man, what type of encouragement would you have for somebody that's still trying to figure out what their lane is and still trying to find a way, but they haven't quite that rubber hasn't met the road yet, and they feel like they're getting that traction that they desire within their lives?
I want to speak to a couple of different aspects of that. I'll start out from the aspect of the people that already are in their position. A lot of times, even for us that are in positions that we feel like we're stuck, there's a lot of people that look up to us and they see us doing particular things and they say, man, I want to be. You remember when we were young? Say, bingo, I want that. Bingo, I want that. And sometimes there's people out there saying bingo about our lives, and we're sitting here wanting and begging and asking for so much more.
That's
people really want what we have already. So for those people that are in that position that have a lot, and you might not know if you have a lot or not, but there's going to be people that are going to come up to you, and you're going to be so stuck, clouded on what's going on with you in your mind, that it's gonna pass by them, that you're gonna absolutely miss that moment to uplift. When we say appreciate, if I tell you I appreciate you, you know what appreciate mean, right?
I mean, I don't know the actual.
Let's use it in terms of an automobile. What does appreciate mean?
Gratitude. Like you're grateful for it. It's reliable.
Let's use actual terms from financial terms.
Okay. Value. It increases in value.
So if I tell you I appreciate you, that means I must be a part of your life to increase your value. So if I say I appreciate you, it's not something of me walking by or just saying thank you. It's an actual intention to say I'm a part of your life and I'm going to be a part of your life. And I'm going to increase the value of your life.
Dang, that's a bar.
You can't just walk around here saying words that we really don't mean. I'm in my mind a lot, and I want to be intentional about the things I say because a lot of times I forget. But two, I understand the value of the words that we absolutely speak. So when I say I appreciate someone, it's not going to be me just being a part of your life for that brief moment. And if I am, I'm going to do the best that I can to add value to your life so it absolutely increase. So when I speak in terms of twofolds, those people who are in a position that have some sort of power, there are people out here that looking up to you that are stuck. Make sure you appreciate them. Make sure you never miss the opportunity of them walking by and them having their head down. Pay attention to the signs of things that are going on with their life. Appreciate them. But there's also the component of the people that are in that position. The thing that I would say to them is find something that's going to hold. And the whole thing that we talked about today was, one, finding a mentor, someone that you meet with on a consistent basis. And if you are in an opportunity to mentor someone, be front with them and say, I don't really have the time to be able to do it, because sometimes you really don't have the time. You could do more. You could jeopardize it more than you actually can help it. But if you meet someone that can be a mentor, and Aeneas Williams, who was a Hall of Fame cornerback with the Arizona Cardinals, well, he was with the St. Louis Cardinals at that point in time. He said that a mentor is a credible and successful other that have done well at what you're trying to do. So I'll say it again. A credible and successful other that has done well at what you're trying to do. So find you a mentor that has credit, that have shown things in the background, that have shown themselves that to be able to do the things that they've been doing for a long time, and they've been successful at it, and they've done well at it, at what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And so you use that mentor, or let that mentor use you to be able to increase the ability of you being able to do that. I'm not going to go to step 2 or 3 in doing that, but whenever you find that mentor, hold on to them. Don't just trying to use them to get to the next step, but listen. Take a general interest. That's my definition of networking. I tend to never network with anybody that I feel like I'm trying to get a leg up on a particular situation. My way of networking is I want to know who you are as a man, how you are as a family guy. What is your family like? Because in any business, I think Chick-fil-A has the best model, and they're one of the best franchises in the business. When they do a franchise analysis on a particular person, or thinking about who they want to give a franchise to, they don't just look at the person. They look at how they handle their finances. They also look at how they handle their families, and they make sure that they are the complete person in a situation that can handle the rigors of actually being a franchisee. Look at yourself as you're a business. Be the CEO of your own business. When I tell people all the time, I say, you are the CEO of your own business. I make sure I try to carry myself like I am BJ Stabler Incorporated. And that's exactly who I am.
Man, that's a bar. I think, man, you that was rich. That was really rich. And I think I want to end it with this, man, because I think that what you just said, man, like, be the CEO of your life, right? And so if you have somebody that even if whether you aspire to be in sports, you aspire to be in business, whatever you aspire to, recognize the business structure. You talked about that earlier, of that, and realize how you're handling your life, right? And if you are in a place right now to where you're not excited about where you're at, as a business, what would you do differently, right? As a business, what would you do differently? And a lot of times you may not know what that is, but number one, it's going to take some education.
Absolutely.
Right? You have to invest in your mental, right, to be able to understand things. And that could be psychologically, right? It could be some counseling and things that are needed, like, at times and things like that. But you have to grow out of your situation, right? You have to grow because it's not just gonna come. Somebody's not just oftentimes just gonna come pick you up. A lot of times you have to grow out of that, grow out of being comfortable where you're at. Because a lot of times we may be in spaces for too long just because we are okay being there. We may say that we're not okay being there, but our actions say that we're okay with where we're at.
Right.
And what I heard you say is, man, is become the CEO of your life. And if you can actually go somewhere else on a job and increase the value of that place that you're at.
That is the main thing.
Yep.
And I ain't playing about this. Everywhere I go, I want to make sure you're gonna remember I was there.
Yep. Facts.
Everywhere I go, I ain't talking about it just within the work. I'm talking about if I'm in any place, you're gonna remember that. And it's not to the sake of seeking attention, but
your presence.
It's providing intention.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's absolutely facts for me.
But the thing, like, if we can go and increase the value of an organization or a company, can we not do that same thing with ourselves? Can we not do those same things in our lives? And so, man, I guess what I have for here, man, is that, man, for those, like, tell us what can we find? What's next for BJ, man? And so, first of all, I want to say, man, thank you so much for coming on, man. I know for a fact that this is going to be beneficial for someone, man. And so, for those that may be looking out for BJ Stabler, man, what's next? What's next for you?
Man, honestly, I'm just following God's direction. I used to seek and fight and find what's next, but the thing that God is saying to me is, man, be where your feet is. Well, be where your feet are, I should say. Yeah. Sorry, I apologize for grammar.
That country came out.
That is. You'll catch me a lot doing that, for real. Maybe it's the wine that you provide to me, but seriously. But no, man, I think that's the thing that God has actually told me in this season is be where your feet are, because I've often always thought about the next step. You know, and sometimes when you have to think about this, when you try to push yourself in another area, sometimes you step on people's toes and they're not ready for that. And if God did not bless those steps, you step on the wrong person's toes, then you're going to be messed up. And so for me, right now, and I'll keep praying on it, but, you know, I am in Alabama, in which I never thought that I would be back here so soon. I always said if I were going to do this, it'd be about 50, 40, older. You know, like I got a lot of life to do. But God was like, man, your pops passed away. You're next up. Your family needs you. And probably not from a standpoint of absolutely being like I'm everything to them. But I feel like I'm next in line to kind of be the center of it. And along with my other brothers too. Like we are next in line to be who we need to be. So my family's here. It's time for me to focus on family. It's time for me to focus on the things that are absolutely important, as opposed to a career or a job or whatever it may be. Yeah, I'm still going to do my job to the best of my abilities, but no longer am I doing the thing that I need to do to sacrifice or jeopardize my time with my son, or, you know, my mom calling me saying, can you come down here because I need you. My niece, I'm missing graduation, and, you know, moments that are truly important that we tend to kind of push off because of the work. And I'm not trying to speak from a spiteful or a vengeful place, but it is important for me in this season to truly hone in and focus on family. That's what the saying and slogan for this season that I'm in. Again, I always tell people, man, don't hold me to the words that I said 5 years ago, because things change within the seasons change. But right now, for where I am and who I am, it's time for me to focus and think about family.
Man, that's dope. That's dope, man. So for those that want to follow your journey, man, tell us where can we find you at on social media?
My Facebook page is BJ Stabler. My Instagram handle is Higher Learning 61, which is twofold, right? One of my favorite movies is Higher Learning.
And the 61.
And 61 is my football number.
Big 61.
Yeah. So find me on there. My Twitter handle is at Royal_Stabler. Royal is a couple of different reasons. I feel like I am part of a kingdom, but two, my dad loved Crown Royal.
He did.
Love Crown Royal.
Yeah.
Most people would think that it's for some other reason.
Yeah.
It's that because I do believe in myself. I am heir. God does say we're heir to His beings, well, to His likeness. But I do think that that's one Royal_Stabler at Higher Learning 61, and I think that's pretty much it. I got in my Facebook page.
Yeah.
So those are the three ways you'll find my journey. A lot of it you'll see my son Solomon James Stabler. Again, James named after my dad. So that's pretty much it. Man, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate you for coming on the podcast, man. This has been a really dope segment. So for those of you, man, definitely listen to the words that he said tonight, because, man, I think that you can find many, many gems in here that'll help you along your way. BJ, thank you so much for coming on this platform. Let me say this. Make sure y'all go and like and subscribe on our YouTube page when it comes up, or if it's up already. Like and subscribe. Share it on Facebook. Share it on Twitter.
Yeah,
man, people need these connections, man, because when you get out here in this world all alone and trying to find a particular direction to go, you're always trying to search for something to latch on to. And let it be, identify your lane, man.
That's dope,
let
man.
us be the one to be able to get
Hey, but I appreciate that. My God, man. So do what he just said, man. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, Identify Your Lane, man. Thank you so much for another segment of Identify Your Lane. We're out, man. Peace.